You are standing in the tunnel in Kyiv. The air feels heavy. Italy are waiting on the other side, blue shirts, hard eyes, a country that knows how to suffer and win. But your team are not pacing like underdogs. Your boots are still. Your breath is calm. Because by now, the world has already learned the most frightening thing about Spain. You do not need to rush. You can take the ball, hide the ball, move the ball, and make 90 minutes feel like a room with no door. How did a country once famous for beautiful failure become the team that changed football forever? For most of its history, Spain were not supposed to be this cold. They were talented. They were emotional. They were always almost there. Before 2008, Spain had won the European Championship in 1964, then spent 44 years watching golden generations become painful footnotes. You would arrive at tournaments with gifted players, big clubs, bright shirts, and loud expectations. Then the same story returned. A narrow defeat, a penalty shootout, a quarterfinal, a flight home. Why did it keep happening? David Goldblatt, in The Ball is Round, writes about football as something bigger than tactics, something tied to politics, identity, memory, and the way nations imagine themselves. Spain carried that weight. Club rivalries were not just club rivalries. Real Madrid and Barcelona were not just two teams with different shirts. They represented histories, regions, languages, and wounds. So when you pulled on the red shirt of Spain, you were not simply joining a national team. You were trying to turn separate football worlds into one shared rhythm. That was the first miracle. Not the passing, not the trophies, the unity. Luis Aragonés understood that before almost anyone else. He was old, blunt, stubborn, and brave enough to upset a country. He looked at Spain and saw that the old formula was not working. The old formula said you needed a traditional leader, a classic star, a team built around personality and status. Aragonés chose something stranger. He chose the ball. He chose midfielders who were small enough to be dismissed, calm enough to be trusted, and intelligent enough to control the emotional temperature of a match. Xavi Hernandez, Andres Iniesta, Marcos Senna, Cesc Fabregas, David Silva, players who did not look like giants. Players who did not need to smash through a wall because they could pass around it. What if Spain's weakness had never been softness? What if it had been impatience? Jonathan Wilson, in Inverting the Pyramid, traces how football tactics evolved from direct, forward-heavy shapes into systems where space, movement, and midfield control became the center of the sport. Spain arrived at the perfect historical moment. The game was getting faster. Pressing was spreading. Athletes were stronger. Defenses were more organized. Pressing means chasing the opponent quickly after losing the ball, not waiting politely in your own half. Most teams answered speed with more speed. Spain answered with calm. This was the birth of the style the world would call tiki-taka. Tiki-taka simply means short passing, constant movement, and keeping the ball until the opponent loses shape, patience, or both. It can look gentle. It is not gentle. It is a way of exhausting the other team without touching them. You pass 5 yards, then 6, then 3, then back, then sideways, then forward, just when the defender thinks the danger has disappeared. The crowd may want drama. You choose control. At Euro 2008, that control finally became proof. You are in Vienna against Germany. Germany are bigger, more familiar with finals, and loaded with tournament confidence. Spain have spent decades hearing the same warning. This is where you lose. But in the 33rd minute, Fernando Torres chases a ball behind Philipp Lahm. He does not overpower the whole German team. He gets one step, one touch, one lifted finish. Spain win 1-0. It is not just a trophy. It is a spell-breaking. UEFA's own records mark it as Spain's first European title since 1964, ending a 44-year wait. But the deeper change is psychological. You now know your way can survive a final. That matters. Because style without proof is just an argument. Style with a trophy becomes a weapon. Sid Lowe, who has written deeply on Spanish football, often places that era inside the culture of its clubs, especially the Barcelona midfield school that taught players to think before they were touched. But Spain were never only Barcelona. That is easy to forget. Iker Casillas was Real Madrid. Sergio Ramos was Real Madrid. Xabi Alonso was shaped by Real Sociedad, Liverpool, and Madrid. David Villa came through the hard roads of Sporting Gijón, Zaragoza, and Valencia. Joan Capdevila was not a La Masia symbol. Marcos Senna was born in Brazil and became essential to Spain. So the team that looked like one philosophy was actually a peace treaty. Barcelona gave the rhythm. Madrid gave authority. Valencia gave edge. Villarreal gave balance. The national shirt finally became bigger than the club argument. Could that last under pressure? The answer came in South Africa. The 2010 World Cup began with a shock. You lose 1-0 to Switzerland. One match in, the old ghost returns. The headlines smell blood. The old Spain is back. Too much passing. Not enough punch. Pretty football. No killer instinct. But Vicente del Bosque does something important. He does not panic. Del Bosque is not loud. He is not built like a revolutionary. He looks almost too calm for a football manager, but his calm is the point. He keeps the structure. He trusts the midfield. He lets Spain suffer without abandoning Spain. That is harder than changing everything. You beat Honduras. You beat Chile. Then the knockout rounds become a strange pattern. Portugal, 1-0. Paraguay, 1-0. Germany, 1-0. Each match is tight. Each match is tense. Each match asks the same question. Can you keep believing in control when one mistake can end your life? Possession becomes defense. That phrase matters. Possession usually means having the ball. For Spain, it means denying the opponent oxygen. If the other team cannot get the ball, they cannot counterattack. If they cannot counterattack, they cannot turn the match into chaos. And if there is one thing old Spain feared, it was chaos. So the ball becomes a shield. Xavi points. Iniesta glides. Busquets waits in the most boring place on the pitch, which often makes him the most important player there. A holding midfielder sits in front of the defense and protects the team, but Busquets does more than tackle. He offers the safe pass. He turns danger into another small triangle. A triangle in football is when three players stand at angles to each other, giving the player on the ball two simple passing options. Simple, almost childish, almost impossible to stop when repeated by geniuses. Then comes Johannesburg, the World Cup final. Netherlands against Spain, orange against red. History against history. Neither country has won this trophy before. The match is ugly, nervous, and violent in moments. Howard Webb shows card after card. The Dutch try to disrupt the rhythm. Spain try to keep breathing. In the 62nd minute, Arjen Robben breaks free. For 1 second, your whole system disappears. No passing pattern can save you now. Only Iker Casillas can. Robben shoots. Casillas stretches his right foot. The ball stays out. Every great team needs an idea. Every great team also needs a save. By the 116th minute, the game is almost out of time. Cesc Fabregas receives the ball. Iniesta waits. One pass. One touch. One right-footed strike. Spain 1, Netherlands 0. The first World Cup in Spanish history. FIFA's archive records the goal in the 116th minute, and the image becomes permanent. Iniesta running away, shirt off, a private message to Donny Jarky on his vest, a nation exhaling after decades. But here is the counterintuitive twist. Spain did not change football by making it more entertaining. Spain changed football by making impatience look stupid. Before Spain, many fans thought domination had to look like waves of attacks, big shots, long sprints, and constant danger. Spain showed another form of dominance. A pass that goes backward can be attacking if it moves the opponent. A 5-yard ball can be brutal if it forces a defender to choose wrong. A quiet midfielder can control a stadium more completely than a screaming striker. That was the revolution. Then Euro 2012 turned the revolution into a dynasty. By now, opponents had studied Spain for years. They knew the patterns. They knew the triangles. They knew Xavi and Iniesta wanted the ball between the lines. Between the lines means the space between midfield and defense, the pocket where a player can turn and hurt you. So what did Spain do? They became even stranger. At times, they played without a traditional striker. This was called a false nine. A false nine is a forward who does not stay high near the defenders like an old-fashioned center forward. Instead, he drops into midfield, drags defenders with him, and creates space for runners. To critics, it looked like Spain had gone too far. Too many midfielders. Too few shots. Too much control. Not enough hunger. Then the final arrived. Spain against Italy in Kyiv. Italy had Andrea Pirlo, one of the calmest passers in football history. They had just beaten Germany. They were not afraid. But Spain produced the cleanest final of the era. David Silva scores first. Jordi Alba storms through for the second. Fernando Torres comes from the bench and scores the third. Juan Mata adds the fourth. Spain win 4-0. UEFA records it as the biggest winning margin in a European Championship final. Spain become the first team to win 3 straight major international tournaments: Euro 2008, World Cup 2010, Euro 2012. That sentence still feels unreal. 3 tournaments, 4 years. No knockout goal conceded across the 2010 World Cup and Euro 2012. A golden era built not on one superstar, but on a shared understanding so deep it sometimes looked telepathic. Brian Glanville wrote World Cup history as a story of changing powers, changing styles, and changing ideas. Spain belong in that story because they did not just win matches. They changed what every coach after them had to explain. Why are your defenders comfortable on the ball? Because Spain made panic in possession look outdated. Why does your goalkeeper need to pass? Because modern teams build attacks from the back, instead of just kicking long and hoping. Why does every academy teach small-sided rondos? A rondo is a training game where players pass in a circle while one or two defenders chase in the middle. Because Spain showed that tiny spaces decide huge matches. Why do teams press so aggressively now? Partly because Spain showed what happens if you let technical players breathe. The modern game is in conversation with that team every weekend. Pep Guardiola's Barcelona were part of the same football universe, of course. Johan Cruyff's ideas shaped the Barcelona school long before Spain's run. Cruyff believed the ball could organize everything: position, spacing, courage, and control. Spain took pieces of that club philosophy, blended them with national compromise, and carried them into tournament football, where fear usually kills imagination. That is why the achievement matters. Tournament football is not a league season. You do not get months to fix mistakes. You get one bad bounce, one red card, one penalty, one goalkeeper's toe. Spain built a style that reduced randomness without removing risk. That is almost impossible. And then, like every football empire, they fell. The 2014 World Cup exposed the cost of time. The legs slowed. The pressing around them evolved. Opponents stopped admiring the passing and started attacking its weak points. The Netherlands beat Spain 5-1. Chile beat Spain 2-0. The champions went home early. But collapse does not erase influence. It often proves it. Because by the time Spain stopped being unbeatable, the rest of the world had already copied the question. How do you control space? How do you press the first pass? How do you create triangles? How do you turn a goalkeeper into an extra player? How do you make 11 footballers think like one mind? That is Spain's legacy. Not just the trophies. Not just Xavi's turns or Iniesta's touches. Not just Casillas lifting the World Cup into the night. The legacy is the idea that football can be won by controlling emotion. Your emotion. The opponent's emotion. The crowd's emotion. The match's emotion. Spain built a team that made the ball feel like a clock. Every pass took away a second of fear. Every triangle took away a yard of chaos. Every calm touch told the world that greatness did not always have to shout. So now, when you watch a center back refuse to panic under pressure, when you watch a goalkeeper clip a pass into midfield, when you watch 3 small players escape 5 bigger ones with 2 touches and a turn, you are still seeing Spain. Not the red shirts exactly. Not the same names. But the same lesson. The ball can be a weapon. The ball can be a shield. The ball can be a language. And if your whole country learns to speak it at once, you can walk into a final, hear the noise on the other side, and feel your boots become still.